Greetings Earthlings, welcome back to a very budget version of the Versus series. So today we're comparing two of the cheapest interfaces on the market, the Behringer UM2 versus the UMC22. But what I'm most excited about here is to find out what the heck the difference is between the Behringer Xenyx Preamp and the Behringer Midas Preamp. But before we get into that, let's briefly talk about the build quality. Both of these interfaces have the exact same features. They have XLR combo jacks, instrument inputs, direct monitoring, computer playback, output volume control, and 48 volts phantom power. The main difference between these two interfaces is the layout of the dials and the build quality. The UMC22 has an all-metal chassis and feels really well put together, while the Behringer UM2 is all plastic and feels like an absolute trashy toy. But now let's go ahead and jump into the tests. Okay, so right now I have the Rode NT1 connected directly to the UM2 with the 48 volts phantom power turned on. My gain is set at 12 o'clock. This interface will set you back around $30. It has the Xenyx microphone preamp. It has an XLR combo jack like I already mentioned, and it records it up to 16-bit 48 kilohertz. And now I'm speaking into the NT1 connected directly to the UMC22 with 48 volts on, and my gain also set at 12 o'clock. This interface will set you back around $50. It also has the XLR combo jacks. This interface has the Behringer Midas Preamp, and it records it up to 16-bit 48 kilohertz. Now I have the Shure SM7B connected directly to the Behringer UM2. The gain is set at 100%, and this is how the audio is sounding when I'm speaking into the microphone, and this is the level of background noise you're getting. And now I have the SM7B connected directly to the Behringer UMC22, also with the gain set at 100%. This is how the audio sounds while I'm speaking into the microphone, and this is the background noise. And in order to get a better understanding of the noise floors of these preamps, I'm going to be measuring that using a methodology shown by Julian Krause, and I'll go ahead and link his video in one of the upper corners if you want to check that out. Okay, here we are looking at the latency for the UM2 with the sample rate set at 48 kilohertz. With an I/O buffer size of 128 samples, we have a round-trip latency of 10.5 milliseconds or an output latency of 4.7. If we drop it to 64 samples, we have 7.7 milliseconds round-trip or 3.5 milliseconds output. And if we jump to 256, we have 15.7 milliseconds round-trip or 7.5 milliseconds output. Now we're looking at the latency for the UMC22, also recording at 48 kilohertz. With an I/O buffer size of 128 samples, we have 11.7 milliseconds round trip, or 4.5 milliseconds output. Drop to 64 samples, we have 9 milliseconds round trip, or 3.5 milliseconds output. And if we jump to 256 samples, we have 17 milliseconds round trip, or 7.4 milliseconds output. Okay, so right now I have my Gibson Les Paul Studio, which has passive pickups, and I'm going to plug it directly into the instrument input of the Behringer UM2 as well as the UMC22. I'll go ahead and show you the raw audio signal from both interfaces so you can hear the differences there, and then I'll run both audio signals through an amp simulator and show you the outputs. And the winner of this Versus series is the UMC22. And in order to explain why I selected this interface, let's walk through all the findings of my tests. First up, the gain offered by both of these interfaces is seemingly identical. Both of them were barely able to drive the SM7B at 100%, so I would guess that they have a max gain of maybe plus 50 or plus 55 decibels, so there's no real winner there. Secondly, in terms of the noise floor, both of these interfaces performed pretty similarly, but the UM2 was slightly louder, and it also had some additional digital interference or RF interference. And if I had to speculate about what causes that, I'm going to go ahead and guess it's the plastic chassis, which likely is not going to block as much RF interference as a metal chassis does. Then third, when we measured the latency of the interfaces, the output latency was identical for both of the interfaces. But when we looked at the round trip latency, there was actually a 1 to 2 millisecond favor for the UM2. And lastly, for the DI instrument inputs, I think both of these interfaces really underperformed. I should have had about 9 decibels of gain to increase the input before I started clipping, but when you go back and listen to that raw input source, you can tell that there's clicking throughout the entire recording. So I don't think either of these interfaces are really ideal for any kind of DI use. So to summarize why I selected the UMC22 over the UM2, it really comes down to 2 factors. The first one being the build quality. I think if you pick up the UMC22, it will be immediately apparent that this interface will last quite longer than the UM2, which feels like a plastic toy. But equally as important, in my opinion, the UMC22 did have a slightly quieter noise floor because it didn't suffer from that RF interference or that digital interference from the UM2. And that's actually going to do it for the Versus series today, but I do want to hear from you guys on a couple of different things. First and foremost, do you agree with the conclusion of this Versus series? Do you think the UMC22 is worth the extra $20, or do you think you should just go with the UM2? And secondly, let me know what pieces of gear you want me to compare in the next Versus series. So if you guys got anything out of this video, thumbs up. If you hated it, thumbs down. Want more videos? Go ahead and subscribe. Click the logo beneath me or click that little bell button. And I will see you all next time. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Bye.